All right, hey everybody, here's our second video with the while loops. And today's going to be an important one. I'm going to introduce some new things, particularly when we're trying to get user input and validate the options. And something new that I'm going to show you as well is using Booleans. So this one I've already started off. We've imported the scanner, created the scanner object, and we've created our first Boolean. So if you guys remember, for Boolean, there's two options, right? Two options, just true and false. Okay, so that seems kind of simplistic, but that will help us later on when we're trying to break out of our while loops. All right, so I'll keep the first part simplified. We're going to say while, and we've already set keep repeating to true. So one way we can represent this is keep repeating. Okay, if you wanted to, you could also say while keep repeating equals true, and it'll do the same effect. For now, we'll keep it simple. Say while keep repeating. Then I'll create a message. So this is where the main program would go. So this is if we were running a different kind of program. I don't want to focus too much on that part today. So this is just our placeholder. Main program will go in this part in the while loop. Okay, so that could be anything from asking user for another input, asking them their name, asking them to enter a number, anything like that. That's not the focus here, though. What we do want to focus on is validating their inputs and how can we get the user to break out of these while loops. Okay, so what we'll do within the while loop, we're going to create another Boolean and call it valid inputs. And this one we're going to set to false as our default. Okay, and then from there, within this while loop, and this is the key part I want to focus on, is we're going to create a second while loop. We just remember label these. And we'll call this not valid inputs. And basically we're saying run this while loop while there's no valid input happening. Okay, then from here, we're going to ask the user would you like to repeat? And type 0 for yes, and 1 for no. Great. Okay, and remember, good practice as well is to label these ending brackets, especially now that we're going to have many, many more. Main sys class. Good. Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. Oops. Okay, so now we're going to create a variable called int user choice. And we need an input.next int. Okay, so that will take in the user's input. Now we can set up some if statements. So if user choice equals to 0, that means they do want to keep repeating. And we'll tell them sec, so I'll tell them that out print great, carry on. Okay, else if they choose 1, that means they don't want to repeat. And we can tell them, okay, goodbye. All right, so that covers those two options, 0 and 1. Here's the problem. What if they typed in 2 or 3? Right, that's not one of these two options. We need a default case for all other choices, and that's where we create the else. And in here, we're going to tell them that's an invalid choice. Actually, let's call them invalid input. All right, so let's run it. It's not complete yet. So right up here, that's where the main program would go. And would you like to repeat? Hit 0. Great, carry on. And we can already see that that repeats. If we typed in 3, invalid inputs, would you like to repeat? Let's type in 1. Okay, goodbye. So it's not complete yet because this should have canceled out right when we said okay, goodbye. So here's where it gets interesting and where we're going to use those Booleans again. All right, let's go to our options. So if they do want to carry on, we need to break out of this valid input and get back to the top here. And the way we do that is by telling them we'll set valid inputs to equal true. So by that being true, that breaks out of this while loop and we go back to the top here. So we'll test that out. So would you like to repeat? Hit 0 for yes. And we say, great, carry on. This is where the main program would go. Excellent. Okay, let's work on the next one. So this one, they want to quit entirely. So first we're going to say yes, for sure. This valid input is true. But also, we no longer want to keep repeating. So keep repeating. That's now equal to false. And let's test that out. Type in 1 for no. And there we go. Okay, goodbye. So basically what happened there was this one was a little redundant, but I put it there just to show that we did have a valid input. And then by setting keep repeating to false, we broke out of this main while loop up here. All right, the last one here. So this is an invalid input. And here, you don't really need to do anything because the default is having an invalid input, but just to make it more straightforward, let's say valid input is false. So now we run it. And let's put in huge number. Oh, too big of a number. Try that again. Yep, invalid inputs. And what we also did was, because it was an invalid input, we forced it to ask us again. So it's going to keep asking us until we do put a valid input. All right, so that is something, it's a little bit new and complex, but this is something that we're going to start implementing into our different programs. One thing we didn't account for, and we will learn how to do this. So if we're expecting an integer and somebody types in a letter right now, our programs are going to crash, or even if they typed in a decimal number, programs crash. So there is a way to prevent these from crashing, and we will learn that in upcoming classes. But for now, watch through this and apply it. All right, thanks guys. Take care.